Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Hit the like button, subscribe, make sure the bell notifications are turned on. It's been an interesting 24 hours in the transfer window. I don't think any of us can deny that. And there is lots to go through on this show. Genuine news story and reports, conspiracy theories, talks of cartels, and that this is not a Russell Brand video. This is not a political show. But words like cartel and conspiracy theory are being thrown up. But we've got to go into this. We have to speak about this because some of these stories are interesting. I think there is potential bigger ramifications for the wider aspect of the league. And as ever, your opinions, your thoughts, your theories are more important than anything else that's going on in the terrace community. Alexander Isak to Chelsea, reportedly due to advance. Liverpool had the chance to sign Anthony Gordon from Newcastle. That has fallen apart, but could be reignited, according to stories. We are going to touch on Man United, looking at Ugarte and looking at... Who's the other player they're looking at? De Ligt, amongst others. We're going to get some people's and yours views and opinions on this because we want to gauge what you all think and feel about them. We're going to be taking your calls on the show today as well, because I have to, it isn't just your comments. I want your comments. Of course, we prioritize our super chats, you brilliant people that keep the terrace going. But I need to take your calls. I need to understand what's going through your heads when you hear these stories that are going on. So I'm going to lay the foundations. Then we're going to start bringing calls in. Giuseppe's backstage going to be joining us all as well. So I will share the link to call in, but please listen to what we're going through first. And I straight away see Isak to Chelsea is off due to wages, I thought. That's a report that's gone around. And we're going to get into all of this. Because I suppose one element of transfer stories that does annoy me is that people go, well, Terry, 3 days ago, you said this journalist said X. Why are you saying something different today? Well, I report on what journalists say. We discuss it and debate it. That's literally what every fan channel does. Any fan channel that says that's not what they do are lying to you. It's what we all do. Anyway, let's go to the stories that are coming through today. Okay, first one is that Chelsea have made a fresh inquiry for Isak just hours after they received the money for Ian Maatsen. There was also a report from Sky that says Chelsea have had further contact with Newcastle over Alexander Isak. Newcastle appear to be willing to sell due to essentially the deadline, the PSR issue they've got. Chelsea made a tentative inquiry earlier in the week, and there's now been further contact since this point, according to them. There's also a story that's going around that Liverpool were ready to sign Anthony Gordon this week, but talks broke down when Newcastle, with Newcastle. Gordon was aware of the talks with his boyhood club, and a medical could have happened in Leipzig. Newcastle wanted Kwanzaa as part of the deal, and Liverpool didn't want him to leave. Talks could be revived next week. This comes from Craig Hope. Now, I read both these stories and thought to myself, wow, Newcastle were trying to get... Some Newcastle fans don't like the top six. They have a genuine despise for us. But what they are trying to do is be part of it. They do want to become Premier League champions, consistent Champions League competitors. And I think once they get up near the top and their income changes and their power changes, and when I say their power, I'm talking about the negotiating power with deals, because the bigger you get, the more fans you've got, the more money you generate, the more power you have, potentially, when it comes to negotiating for transfers, buying players, commercial fees, etc., sponsorship deals. They're probably going to want to join it. But as of now, they hate what they call the cartel clubs, the top six, as it stands. But you look at Newcastle and think, could they are trying to get there, but they're not quite there yet. And the Chelseas and the Liverpools, in my opinion, and I say this with all due respect to Newcastle, could be more attractive to a number of players than Newcastle are right now. Now, Newcastle can't spend as other billionaire state-owned clubs have done in the past. We saw City spend very heavily in the first few years because they were able to. There was no PSR, no FFP in place. Chelsea were not state-owned, but of course owned by Roman, who spent billions, but was able to do that in the best part of the first decade because there was no rules and there was regulations. We know why the regulations came in, because multiple clubs had other billionaire owners, and with 50, 60 million pounds off of debt, were almost going out of business, almost going out of business. So, of course, the rules and regulations came in to stop clubs overspending, creating huge debts, which would be even bigger now, that could potentially put the club out of business forever. Makes sense, needs to stay. Some reform needed, I agree. Now there's the conspiracy theories to this. There are conspiracy theories. The first one comes here from Luke Edwards, who says, just my opinion, but I think Newcastle are creating a lot of noise around players, but have no intention of selling them. It's part of a strategy to muddy the profit and sustainability compliance. Deals falling through, clubs not willing to match the asking price. They are going to ask, they aren't going to sell Isak, and they're not going to sell Gordon. I repeat, it's just my theory because it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever either. So essentially, and I'm seeing Newcastle fans in my comment section on this morning video say, Terry, this is us. We are pushing this news out. We're doing it to muddy the water. It makes no sense to me because the Premier League are going to go, well, you should have accepted the bid. We see that with Newcastle. Sorry, Nottingham Forest. They didn't say to Nottingham Forest, well, you tried to sell players and couldn't get the maximum value. So that's the other side. Then you kind of get sort of don't react to the Isak news, don't react to the Gordon news. They're not going to sell under any circumstances. It's absolute nonsense. Nothing's going on here. And I really want to ascertain and I really want to understand what you think and what you feel about this. Because some Newcastle fans think there is nothing to this, nothing will happen, everything will be fine. They're not going to sell any players. There are no issues in any capacity whatsoever. Some think that Newcastle were trying to muddy the waters themselves. It's a very, very, very interesting situation. And I want to ascertain and I want to understand what you all think and what you all feel about this, because it is very, very, very interesting indeed. Give us your thoughts and give us your... If you're watching the playback, leave us your comments below. We're going to share the link for you to call in and have your say. In other news, look, we know Man United, and I'm going to bookmark the difference in times because I want to speak about both these situations. But Manchester United, looking at Ugarte, looking at De Ligt, and look, it's such a mixed bag out there. Some people happy, some people sad, some people annoyed, some people... A massive variety of views and opinions when it comes to these individuals potentially coming in to Manchester United. I do have a theory. I have an interesting thought on this. When people like something that Ineos are doing, they say Ineos knows ball. When something happens, and I'm talking small things, I don't like the fact this manager stayed, or I don't like this scout, or I don't like this player link. They're just the same as the Glazers. Nothing's changed. Man United fans have got to calm down a little bit. But we're going to be discussing all of that on the show today. Giuseppe's joining me now because I want to get some different views and different opinions on this. Giuseppe, welcome back, my friend. Obviously, the situation with Newcastle is, I'm going to say it, is a strange one. You've got some Newcastle fans saying nothing's going to happen, nothing to see here. You've got big links from credible outlets that Chelsea and Liverpool are in deep negotiations for their players. You've got those clubs also briefing press saying nothing's going to happen. And it all seems to center around PSR. What's your personal take on it, my friend? You're on mute, by the way.
Sorry, thanks for having me again, as always. And listen, the Newcastle thing's interesting because there's a side of me that's saying, obviously, before the transfer window opened, there was a lot of noise about they have to sell a player or a couple players to level their finances out because they didn't get Europe. But then, obviously, when they got knocked out of Europe, I heard that actually benefited them getting knocked down. So I'm not too sure. Like the thing is, I feel like they're gonna sell a player. I'm not sure about this Isak stuff because I just think, like you said, they want to become a top 6 team. They want to become like a Premier League winning team, and you're not going to do that by selling the best players that you have. And Anthony Gordon, I can understand he's replaceable for them. But in the striker market right now, even Bruno Guimarães, like I can kind of understand because they've got Tonali coming back. I feel like they can replace Bruno they could take a bit of a risk, maybe bring someone in and match it. But I don't know if they can actually bring in someone that will bring the qualities that Isak brings them. So it does confuse me that they'll sell him. Now, if they get a ridiculous offer of like 150 million, I think they can't help it. They're gonna have to accept it. But I don't think that offer's gonna come in. I think Chelsea are probably pushing for it right now, seeing what they can do, or it is just them pushing it out there to sort of like do, as you said, fend, like as that guy's theory said, fend people off and make the PFA or what they're called, like be like, look, like we can't sell our players. But once, as you said, that makes no sense, because if you get offered 100 million for Isak and you're asking for 150, you can't not sell him. You're just overpricing him. And that is a difference, because he's not worth, in my opinion, he's not worth 150 million. That's just over the top. I think he's just, I don't even think he's worth 100 million personally. But I do think that they will have to sell a big name personally. I personally think it will end up being Bruno. But obviously right now, strikers are all the range. So everyone's talking about everything. So Isak's probably the main headline. But if there's news outlets and known good news outlets saying that Chelsea are getting advanced with Isak, it makes you think, well, hold on a minute. Is this true? Does it hold water? Now, first of all, we like, as an Arsenal fan, I hate to hear that, because I think if he's up and available, we need to go all out to get him. He's my favourite choice as a striker for Arsenal, but that's a different point. But I think Newcastle are in a situation where they're not quite there yet. They've got these players, so maybe it's also the players pushing. Like, they could not want to sell someone, but if the players start pushing, the worst part is having players that don't want to play for your club.
It becomes a really difficult conversation, because I understand everybody's so emotional when it comes to their football club. I'm no different. That's why I completely understand. When I hear Newcastle fans say there is no chance on hell we sell any of these players, I think that's delusional from the perspective of, you cannot guarantee your club isn't going to sell anybody, because even the biggest and the best teams in the world have sold people that we didn't expect. I guarantee if social media existed in the capacity, it didn't exist at all. When Luis Figo was linked to Real Madrid, everybody would have said, no chance, not happening. Barca fans would have said, not on your Nelly. And of course, it did. And these things happen. Yeah, I guarantee you, Liverpool fans on social media, it may have existed briefly at that time, a smaller version, but would have said, no way. Liverpool would have said, no way we're letting Fernando Torres go to Liverpool. Ended up being, to Chelsea. Ended up not being a good signing, but fans have done this my entire life. There was just not always social media to broadcast it. So I think that's a crazy claim. I also look at Newcastle fans that say, it's PSR, I can't believe we've been forced into this position. I have to push back against that and go, well, you haven't been forced into this position. Your club was one of the teams that voted for these rules and to be in place. You voted for it. You also agreed to be part of the democratic system, which you also used to your advantage. When Newcastle United voted to stop Manchester United and Liverpool earning exponentially more TV revenue money than everybody else, even though between the two clubs, we generated the lion's share of audiences, which make you your money. This is the bit that's annoying me about fans, and everybody's being really self-centered about this, is that you were fine for that democratic process to exist when it helped your club. But now that your circumstances have changed and you have an owner that's the richest we've ever seen, now you're going, oh, I wish we hadn't voted those rules in now. It would stand me in good stead at this moment. So you're kind of lashing out. And also, I understand Newcastle fans don't like the idea of Chelsea's and Liverpool's coming for their best players. So are you telling me now, Newcastle fans, you're going to advocate for your club to not go after any other club's best players in future? This is the problem with the attitude that's being pushed out there. And again, Newcastle fans, if somebody was trying to buy Manu right now, I'd be annoyed at them. I get it. I understand the subjectivity and the emotion that you're going through. But Newcastle United have also, in the last few years under the new owners, tried to take other people's best players away from them. So what I don't understand is this. I almost feel it's a little bit put on, this outrage of, I can't believe we're being treated like this. But you want to do this to other clubs. The hypocrisy stinks to me from that side of things. It really does. And I understand they don't want to lose their best players. I understand they don't like PSR. I understand they don't like FFP. But it's there for a reason. It is there to also protect you from your new owners overspending and then pulling away in 3 years' time and leaving you destitute and collapsing, because you'd probably then also moan, why was there no checks and balances? Why was there no safety net for us? But listen, I can see one or two of the Gordons or the Isaks or the Bruno Guimaraes leaving. I don't believe this theory that Newcastle were creating these stories so they can go to PSR and say, yeah, look, it's we tried to sell it and got rid of them. Because we know the new rules, they were revealed yesterday. The Premier League's briefed the media with them, that they can ask for all the internal and external emails and communications. And what I don't believe is going to happen, and this is where their theories all fall down. If the red cartel or the top six cartel exists, why are they going to communicate with you in a way like they're going to buy your players to get you out of getting in trouble? Why would they help you if they're also trying to hinder you by the rules they bring in? None of it makes any sense to me. Newcastle spent a lot of money since their new owners come in. They've increased their wage bill. They got into the Champions League and they fouled this season. And that failure this season to progress out of the group stages and to get back into the Champions League has left them with a financial hole, which they now need to fill by selling players, because it's going to take them years to grow their revenues. And Newcastle fans knew this. The Newcastle fans that came onto the terrace when they first got taken over said, this is a 10-year project to get us to the top. They're 2.5, 3 years into it and almost kicking off about it. The whole thing smells to me. And I sympathize with them in certain areas. But at the same time, I almost feel like when you're at the top, you're not going to be talking like this, because they will get there, Newcastle. I really believe it. But when they're there, they're not going to talk like this for me, personally. It sounds a little bit like champagne socialism, if that makes sense. It's all just a little bit off key. But the Liverpool Gordon one, I mean, did that strike you by surprise this morning when you heard about that?
Yeah, because it kind of come out of nowhere, for one. But just on what you said as well, Terry, like an anecdote for you from my life is I remember being at school saying Van Persie's not leaving Arsenal. He won't leave Arsenal. And then he joined Man United. Like you're never a too big a club. Let's put that out there. You're never too big a club for someone else to come take your players. Yeah. And we're bigger than Newcastle, in my opinion. So yeah, that they have to stop crying and that, and understand that when you're at the top and you got the best players, this is the life you live. People want your players. Yeah, if you want to be at the top, you got to have people that want your players.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think what Newcastle, and it's funny because I've got family, but my cousin, good friend of mine, Joe, Newcastle fan. I've got friends. There's a lot of Newcastle fans similar age to me in London because they were good in the 90s and people supported them. I've got a few friends that are from the Toon, and we've had these conversations. And one of my real good friends, James, who's from Newcastle, he'd tweet me at times and say, why you and all other people talk about my club? So what do you mean? Well, people are talking about we should or shouldn't have these owners. We haven't progressed. Is the manager working? Every few months, why are you all talking about us? It's like, bruv, this is what happens when you become a threat. This is what happens when you become a better club. This is what happens when you have better players. This is what happens when you improve and then go backwards. You become a talking point. If you want to go back to being Newcastle that were irrelevant, getting relegated, getting promoted, no one cared about, go and do that. But when you become more relevant, you're spoken about more. It's the rough and the smooth. And I think when you're kind of used to being left alone, and the younger generation of Newcastle fans especially, I think, feels that. Suddenly they're headline news, and it's like, well, this ain't fair. What's going on? Well, that's the life. That's the life for me. But a few people are saying Gordon grew up a Liverpool fan. Yeah, I read that. I mean, I just don't see it as, look, he quit Everton when Everton were in trouble to come to you. And now you're like, oh, it's a disgrace that Liverpool think they can come and get him. What, like you literally did to Everton? That's what I don't get about the outrage.
Yeah, listen, I think that the Gordon move, I think it's an all right move. I think that it's I think he's a good player. I don't know if that's the move I'd be moving for if I was Liverpool. I don't think it would like turn over trees at Liverpool. I think I'm not sure. For me, Gordon, I don't know if he's at the level yet to be like oh wow, we've signed Anthony Gordon. Like, he's going to turn our season next year. He's going to be Slot's main guy and stuff. Like, I don't think that will happen. He will be a great signing as like a player in their squad. But as you said, to think he won't go to Liverpool is crazy. It's crazy. Definitely when he's a Liverpool boy, he's from Merseyside. Like, he's played at Merseyside, so he knows what it's like there. He's not foreign to him to live around that area and stuff. And listen, at the end of the day, Newcastle are in trouble at the moment in the sense of they're not in Europe and that. And he's got a track record of jumping ship. So to think it's that thing of, like you just said, how can you? It's like getting with a girl that's, not to use girls as getting with a girl that's you cheat with a girl, and then you're surprised when she cheats on you. But you shouldn't, because
you're only using the girl as an example because that's the perspective you're looking at it from as a man, and it's true. And I've got a girl mate, a good friend of mine. I'm not going to say her name because some people that know me might realize I'm talking about. Her last 3 boyfriends, including her husband, have been men that she has essentially stolen from other women. They've been with people. She started cheating with them. They've got together, and each of those men have then cheated on her. Well, you pick a type, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, I have no sympathy. And she came to like a barbecue, me and our mates. Like, she's one of those friends. I don't know if you get this where you're from, but where I'm from, there's certain girls that we just call bruv. Do you know what I mean? She's a bruv.
Yeah.
She's one of those girls. And she turns up, she's moaning about it. And we're like, we've got no sympathy because that's what you picked. Do you know what I mean? If you decide to date a seasoned professional criminal, oh, I'm so sad, my fella's gone down. Well, he was a criminal. You knew what he was. Like, no sympathy at all. So yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, look, from my perspective, that makes perfect sense. It really, really does. Before we start bringing more callers out, I wanted to ask you about Man United's links. I wanted to get an external pair of eyes. Some United fans excited about Manuel Ugarte, about De Ligt, about Branthwaite. How do you view it as an Arsenal fan in terms of that being the first business that Manchester United do?
I think that's, I'll be honest, like, I think that's 3 great bits of business. If you got all 3 of them, I'd be like, okay, wow. Because I think that Ugarte, if that's how you say his name, he's sort of been tarnished with a brush now because he went to PSG and it hasn't quite worked. I think that happens a lot with players at PSG. He's still young. People think he's like 28 or something. No, he's not. He's still a young player, and he's a good player. I think he'll be a great signing, and I think he would like complement like Maino in the midfield. So I think he's a great signing if you get him. I think De Ligt, he's a player it's weird. He's a very weird viewed player because he gets all these big moves, and then people think he's not that good, but he is good. Like we live in this world now where people look at clips and judge players on clips. And I think that's what De Ligt suffers with, because I'll be honest, not many players ever watch Juventus. Not many fans watch, not many fans
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, not many fans watch Juventus. Not many fans watch Bayern Munich. Apart from obviously from that country, but if you're talking people from England, they don't watch him. They're just hearing about him not being that good, and they're like, he's a rubbish player. Why would you want him? He's rubbish. But yet he goes up and up and up in his moves. And I know bad players also get these moves. You see Dyer going to Bayern. But when Arsenal played Bayern, I thought De Ligt was quality when we played against him. And I think he'd be quality. And I think if you bring him in with a Branthwaite, with Martinez that you already have, all of a sudden you have all these great centre-backs and you look dangerous at the back, like, because you're already quite decent defensively. Last season you had your frailties because you had loads of injuries. People want to forget that as well. I think that if you bring in them two, especially them 2 defenders, then it's going to look really, really peak. But people forget that Martinez can also play left back. I think they're all great signings. And for me, I think if Man United make them signings, you're going to see Man United start progressing in the right direction. And also it's because you're kind of going for players that you want and fit. Like, it's not, you're not going for the names anymore. I know these are names, but you're not. I feel like Man United aren't going for them names of like the bait names, if that makes sense. Like the ones like,
and that's where I think I got called out yesterday. Well, we did a show with Staffy, and while we were live, the De Ligt link came out, and Staffy kind of went off on one. And me and Lawless are just playing with him a little bit. It's not serious about. He was being objective about Arsenal, objective about Chelsea. Comes to Man United, and because it's players he doesn't like, no, I'm fuming. I've seen a big Man United fan in some social world kind of tweet out, "I'm done with Man United if we sign one of these players." And I just think it feels a little bit like you're behaving like children. I keep seeing this. Well, there's some Dutch players in there. That means Ten Hag must still be in control. It doesn't mean that. You're putting 2 and 2 together and getting 37. Give it some time. We're linked to sort of players and profiles that we've been linked to some of them in the past, but we're kind of going through things in a different way. We've got different recruiters. We're changing structures. We're changing coaching staff. I'm going to give it some time. I don't think we're linked to anyone or signing anybody that I go, wow, I can't believe. Like, by the way, if Chelsea do pull off Isak, what a signing it is. I don't think we've been linked to anyone like yet that I feel that way about. But let's see what happens for the rest of the window. But this is what I'll throw out to Man United fans, and I don't believe there's a counter argument to this. Pretty much every summer since 2014, we've had a wow or two wow signings where we've gone, this guy. Di Maria, Falcao, Paul Pogba, this guy, that guy. We've had so many where we've gone, yes, and none of it's worked. I've been screaming for a different approach. So that's why I'm not allowing my subject. And I saw the video, it's gone viral, of Manuel Ugarte. And everyone's like, this is his only performance in England against Newcastle. We got smoked. And he did in that. He was awful. Awful. Newcastle were brilliant. Why aren't people mentioning how well he played at the Emirates season earlier? Now, we got sent off in that game. So when you, again, if you just look at the stat of the game, he got sent off. Oh, he got sent off. He's a bum. He basically took a second yellow to stop a counter-attack from Arsenal when he was already booked. But his actual performance, I remember it because that was the game where afterwards my comment section was lit up with Ugarte, amazing. A few weeks later, he's linked to Chelsea, and Man United fans and Liverpool, Arsenal, everyone's like, oh, I love him. It hasn't quite worked out at PSG, and it's like, see, I'm so glad we missed out on him. People are just, it's all about what is and isn't fashionable, in my opinion, as opposed to who is and isn't a good player and what systems they would work in. Jurgen Klopp wanted to sign, Julian Brandt and somebody else, I can't remember the other guy's name, for Liverpool, and they went for Mane and Salah instead, and it was laughed at. And there's no way the other two would have been better, in my humble opinion. And they went with what the likes of Michael Edwards decided. I'm prepared to put some faith for the next couple of years in the people making these decisions now. And we my theory is the style of football we're going to try and implement is going to have a Dutch influence. We've got a Dutch head coach. We're hiring 2 Dutch coaches. And I almost think there's an element of, we bought a lot of, and this makes sense because adaptations. We bought a lot of players that should have been able to play Ten Hag's system that he had at Ajax because we let him pick them. But then we just tried to implement a different style. It stands to reason that we say, I don't know how to name what the style is, but this is how we want to play. You've already got quite a lot of the profiles for it. We're going to buy you 4 or 5 more profiles like it, and it's going to build the base and foundation for the club to grow from. And Man United fans got to wake up and smell that. But again, I will say before we bring in more callers, these are the same Man United fans who have consistently believed that just sack the manager, bring in a world-class manager and 2 ballers, and we can challenge for the Premier League again. So their inability to digest the real problems that Man United has always been beyond them. So am I surprised to see Baby being thrown out with the bathwater? And by the way, these are the same man who are nearly all eye test merchants who say you can't look at compilations to judge a player, yet they're all doing that with Ugarte. Crazy to me. Crazy.
I think as well, which is crazy, is like maybe I look at it from an Arsenal standpoint now, which is maybe a bit different. I can understand Man United fans not having certain trust, but you got to realize you got new owners now. There's a new person to trust. Don't not trust these people because you didn't trust the people before. You can't do that. Look at Arsenal as people only, certain fans only look at what they want to look at. They don't look at Arsenal and think, well, we all laughed at Kai Havertz and look what Arteta done with him. He made him look like, you may still not rate him, but his GA and his performances last season for Arsenal speaks for themselves. People laughed at Ben White. People laughed at Aaron Ramsdale. I know Aaron Ramsdale don't play for us right now, but that season he had was phenomenal. So I think that people need to realize that just because someone done something at a club before, and these are the same people that call other clubs and stuff like graveyards for players. Like, how many people call Chelsea a graveyard for players? Yeah, Man United actually gets tarnished with the brush of graveyard for players. So you've got to realize different systems, different managers, different teams all have a hindrance on a player or have an effect on a player. So just because you're signing him and you don't think he's looked that good at PSG, you have faith in your club and have faith in the manager and the club that they will get more out of that player. Not that it's just, oh, that's it. No, throw our toys out the pram. We're not even giving him a chance, because a lot of Arsenal fans, even now, still do that when they've been proven wrong 3 or 4 times. They're still like, no, that's it. I'd give up, instead of just giving time and giving people a chance. And it's actually quite jarring, to be fair.
No, I totally agree. And by the way, I'm not directly talking about Staffy. I'm having a joke with him. He's my boy. He's a good guy. I just think people are, there's too much emotion and not ignorance, arrogance, really. My opinion is right on everything. And some people will throw it back at me and go, Terry, we all think our opinion's right. But the lack of ability to, I see what their issues are with some of these players. So when people go, Terry, you're like that. Well, I can't be, can I? Because I totally understand the question marks over keeping the manager. I understand the question marks over De Ligt and Ugarte. I understand the question marks over Xerxes. I like Xerxes. He's not a prolific number 9. He isn't someone that you go, that could be 25, 30 goals a season. That's the objectivity within it. At the same time, there is the, well, let's give it a little bit of time to cook. Let's see what the style of football looks like. We also know as well that certain players are elevated depending upon the team they're in. Now, there's a modern day phrase for that, which is, well, he's a system player. But I think there's an element of truth to that, to all players. Pedro, in that peak Barcelona team, looked world class. Goes to Chelsea, he looked what I'd call good to very good. Because that Chelsea team wasn't as good as that Barcelona side, didn't have the same personnel around him, didn't have a Pep Guardiola as manager either. So he was good. He was very good at times, but he wasn't the did I say Pedro? I meant Pedro that we saw there. And that's just normal in football. So Xerxes could be scoring 10 goals a season where he is now, move to Man United and become a 20-goal a season player. Ugarte could, he ain't that good on the ball. Well, maybe he just didn't quite fit what PSG were doing, but maybe he comes to Man United and he looks a completely different football player. There were people that doubted that Rice could do what he did for Arsenal last year, and he went and he did it. Yet there were also people the other way. Maddison, once he goes to a bigger club, you watch him light years ahead of Bruno Fernandes. That lasted 2 months, and then so it's just I find it so. I know everyone's entitled to an opinion, but I really do think we have to push in these conversations now for some more objectivity, see it from the other side, discuss the other side of the opinion as well, as opposed to, I'm just not even going to engage if it isn't what I want, because that is what my 5-year-old daughter does. That is what Freya does when she doesn't get her way, is, no, I'm not getting what I want, so I'm not complying at all. It's child's play. I think we've got to try and get away from that as best we can. Pav, you're here with us. I know you've got to shoot in a minute, mate. What do you want to say, brother?
I'm okay with the players that we're looking at, but I believe at the end of this window, it's not going to be enough. Like, I believe De Ligt's a second choice to Debo. Obviously, there's some sort of case going on with him. We're trying to buy him and UEFA ain't allowing it, but I think that only happens, the De Ligt deal, if we can't get to Debo. But we should be getting both. Not only that, we should be getting another centre back. Maguire and Lindelof need to go. Leacher and his injuries, we don't know what's going to happen next season. He could get injured again, so we kind of need 3 centre backs to come in. Ugarte never come through my mind at all, and we need midfielders, not just one. I'd say about 2. I was more hoping that if we had the funds, we could go for a Bruno from Newcastle, a player like that. But that won't happen. But yeah, I'm not too fussed about Ugarte. I haven't really watched too much of him unless it's been in the Champions League. But he looks pretty decent. Like he's 23. He's 23, and do you know what? I thought De Ligt was pretty old because I feel like he's been around for a fair time. He's only 24 still, so they're kind of not looking at the players that are above like the 25, 26 mark. But
I want to say this about him as well. Since when do we write centre backs off before they're even in their mid-20s? Maybe it's a mod. Normally, you didn't even used to see centre backs get anywhere near their peak until their early mid-20s and beyond, generally speaking. And he's 24. I mean, I've watched him probably play 30 or 40 times across Champions League football, a few league games internationally. I've never watched him and gone, oh my God, he's dreadful. I've never, and maybe I'm not saying he hasn't had bad games, because I would expect all young centre backs to have bad games. Every now and then you get a Saliba who just, you know, a bit like Rio Ferdinand was, where it's almost just perfection from day one. But that's the exception, not the rule. Or am I off there, Pav, in your opinion?
I did think after the performances we saw from him from Ajax that by now I thought he would have been one of the top 5 centre backs in Europe, but I don't think he is. And looking from what's happened at Juve, he should never have gone to Italy at that age, at a young age, going to a league like that. He should have come to the Prem or even gone to the Spanish league at that age. And then going to Bayern as well, where they're playing a 3-back for the last couple of seasons, it doesn't suit him. And the season just gone now. I think he's missed something like 20-odd games, so he's had a bit of a injury-prone season. But prior to that, it weren't too serious. But I don't mind him coming in because he's played under Ten Hag before. And if anyone's going to bring the best out of him, like we did see at his Ajax days, it's probably that guy. But we do need more reinforcements. And that's when it comes down to Ineos, because I can see they're making changes, although there's a lot of stuff going around the women's stuff, but that's another day for another show. They need to be doing a lot more. And I don't know what our finances are like. Everyone seems to think that we're in trouble, this and that. I don't believe it. Until I see concrete proof that we're broke, then I'll say that we're struggling. But I need to see more signings. We need to really bring in a lot more, because we need to push for that Champions League spot. I don't want to be struggling every other season.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, that is where I agree with you. I think me and you are pretty much in the same train of thought. I'm not sitting there going, oh my God, look at who we're signing. It's amazing. Equally, I'm not panicking. I'm going to wait until the end of the window. I think for Man United fans, my key message is let's at least see a few preseason games first, how we're trying to move the ball, how we're playing, also who sold. You know, there was talk of Rashford's going and people like that. And let's see who leaves and who else comes in, because you could buy the 4 we're linked to. And then you sign, and I'm going to throw a name out there that we're not linked to him, but I'm going to throw the name out there. We get Xerxes, we get De Ligt, we get Branthwaite, we get Ugarte. But then Rashford leaves and Sancho leaves, and we go and sign, and then we sign Cavashilia. Then suddenly go, oh, okay. Well, there is that sort of star name in there, but coupled with some other really good signings, you look at that as a window and go, quite happy with that. So I don't think it will be him. I think he's going to go to PSG. But I'm in the same mind space as you, my friend. I think it's a case of staying calm, not panicking. When I see United fans, I'm turning my back on the club. I'm like, we've just got new ownership and a new direction. How are you turning your back now? It seems the weirdest time to turn your back, if that makes sense.
Just before I go, Terry, you just mentioned Xerxes. That is a pivotal. We need to bring in another striker. Otherwise, that experienced striker we've all been talking about for the past few months is probably going to end up being about this story. He's going to have to put the shirt on.
Mate, listen, I think he'd do better than some of the players we're linked to. I'm telling you that now, as sure as eggs are eggs. Top man, Pav, I know you got to shoot, and we'll chat to you again soon. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye. We're going to get to some more people. We've got Eli and a few others backstage in a minute. Wintersurfer's here with us. Obviously, Chelsea linked to this Isak move. You know, obviously you're part of the cartel clubs. Newcastle fans are not happy with you. How do you see it? Do you see this as a genuine link? It goes against the idea that you pulled out of the Elise deal for financial reasons to a certain degree. Do you believe you're really talking to him, or do you believe Newcastle? I mean, there's some theory that Newcastle was spreading this rumor. How do you see it as a Chelsea fan, my friend?
To clarify, I don't think it will happen, even if we are talking to him. I just don't. think. But I do like the idea that now we've got a deadline day within a transfer window that's still open. So I do like this. That now it's like a PSR deadline day, and people are like going to sell their players. I mean, if it is true, and like I say, they couldn't do the Gordon deal. I mean, so why isn't it like Chelsea, if they really wanted him, could wait and just go, we'll offer you 85, 90 million with like 30 million add-ons that are achievable add-ons, and see what they say then. They either say no and take the hit, take a points hit for next season, or they sell him. And I don't even know if they paid us for Lewis Hall yet, Terry. Do you know what I mean? Because they were supposed to pay us for Lewis Hall, and if they haven't paid us for that, maybe we use that as part of like a bargaining tool as well. Say, well, you don't have to pay us now; you can pay us in a few weeks' time, new financial year. It's all murky. It would send another mixed messaging, should I put it politely, from everyone. But yeah, if we were serious, then maybe we'll hear something later today and early tomorrow or something like that. I just don't see us doing it. I'm sort of in the camp of them leaking it themselves, really, because when you read all the Chelsea media, stuff like that, no one's really like concrete about it. Do you know what I mean? It's all like tentative stuff. But yeah, if we do go for him, of course it'd be an excellent signing, no doubt about that. It'd be, people in the chat going, why would he leave Newcastle to go to Chelsea? Like Newcastle sometimes or some big club all of a sudden because it's got a big stadium, and all that. But it's just it was just another mixed message from the board again about their transfers and everything. It's just,
I mean, do you know what it is? For me though, I wouldn't say it would be a mixed message, because my feeling was when you said you pulled out of the Elise deal was that you just got rejected. But instead of just
we did
owning the rejection, you sort of pushed the notion of we walked away.
We didn't walk away. We rejected.
And what it does prove is there was talk towards the end of last season that you haven't signed anyone that's actually over 25 yet, but you were going to look for some more experienced players. And if you were to get Isak, I think he's 24. You've got Tossin, who's 26. You've got Dewsbury Hall that looks very likely at 25, turning 26. I think the age profile that Chelsea are bringing in is absolutely
it's also quality, right?
And it's good quality too. Yes.
More importantly, the age that's like, if Elise is 22, but the quality is there, right? It wouldn't matter. That's what I keep saying. Chelsea fans aren't. This is what I give. Everyone goes, "Oh, we shouldn't buy young players." It's wrong. We shouldn't buy young players where we have loads of question marks over. We should buy young players that are quality. Like if we had an option to buy Musiala, do you think this Chelsea fan base would go, "Oh, I don't know about Musiala's age"? No, they'd be snapping him up. They'd be going, "Yeah, he's 20 years old, 21. Let's take him." This is the whole point. Isak is, listen, everyone might go, well, look at Isak's injury record. That's another red herring in terms of what, it's not that bad actually. When I actually looked at it yesterday, it's not that bad when it comes to his injury record. But I mean, it would be, listen, I like Jackson. I don't listen, but he'd be a far improvement on Jackson. And it would be something to actually, that the Chelsea fans who don't like the ownership that after all this model couldn't argue against that much if they sign Isak. I think it'd be a transfer that I don't see any. I can't see logically how any Chelsea fan could say no to signing Isak. It just doesn't make sense, right? Unless they just hate the owners that much that whoever they sign, they're just going to say no. And I can understand it, but I just think it's just, I don't know. I think they're just going to I think they might just take the points here in the end and start I don't know how many points are going to be deducted because because Bruno was supposed to go. That's the only other one. This Gordon one's come out of nowhere. They wanted to take Kwanzaa or something in a swap deal plus that. And why would Kwanzaa want to go to Newcastle when he's just broken through at Liverpool? You know what I mean? So it's just one of those. I don't know what I would just really tempt. I would tempt them. I would say 85, 90 million plus 30 million add-ons.
I think there's so much to this. I mean, I really love it. Even Chelsea fans in this talking about the red cartel have got to fall. Well, listen, so it's like Chelsea and City fans call it the red cartel because then they can take themselves out of it. But all the other clubs say it's the top six cartel. It's like you're Chelsea fans, don't try and separate yourself from this. You're in it. You're in it with us, brother. You're in it with us.
No. It's really the old top four cartel. Man City aren't even in that cartel.
Yeah, I mean Chelsea. That's how much you know Chelsea are part of this. Is that you're part of the old traditional top four as well. You've been in this for 20 years, mate. Like Chelsea fans trying to act like, oh no, we're with the rest of you. No, but I mean, look, it's all a nonsense anyway. It's all a complete and utter nonsense. It's I think there are times where the bigger clubs will come together. And I think Man United and Liverpool are a prime example. You know, we looked at the official facts and we saw that over 60-70% of all the viewing figures for Premier League games, this was a decade ago, it's changed now, was because of our teams. And we're saying, well, we want a bigger share of the money. But the democratic process that we signed up to voted no to that request. And we had to move on from it. What we're now seeing is people that are happy to be in that democratic process when it suits them, kick off against democracy when it hurts them. And the crazy thing is, I think we've become that way as people because we see it in our politics all the time now. We see it in the UK, and we definitely see it in international politics now. People win democratic votes, and then everybody calls foul on it. And all you then hear for the next however long into an election is it's all fraudulent anyway. Like, no one can just accept
but the thing is,
defeat anymore. Or, you know, this is what's, and I say to Newcastle fans, and I do feel for you, but if you do sell Isak, you're then going to go and do to another club what you feel Chelsea are doing to you. I would respect Newcastle fans more if they said, no, we shouldn't be replacing him. We need to develop our own from scratch because how dare we flex our financial muscle compared to another club and take their player? That's the element that and it's not a dig at Newcastle directly, any fan bases that do it. We do it as fans. Liverpool fans booed Raheem Sterling to this day because he forced his way out of their club. But they cheered players that have forced their way out of clubs to join them. It's all ridiculous. It really, really is. I could just share this with us. He says here, conversations have taken place between Chelsea and Newcastle over Alexander Isak, but Newcastle would only consider selling him as a last resort, with Chelsea believing they would have to pay some 100 million to have a chance of securing him. But I think he's worth 100. Would you? I want to speak to Gavan, who's with this Chelsea fan. Do you think Isak is worth 100 million pounds to your club?
For me, I would take Isak right now. It's if you really want to leave Newcastle. But one of the main reason why I would say no, I wouldn't take Isak right now is we're already in about 2 years in our building, and the way all these owners, prove. Let me go back a little bit to the Michael Olise deal, because I think this is a cover up for the Olise because of how we lose out on Olise. So I think these owners are trying to keep the fans calm as possible, because if you notice, when we find out we missed out on Olise, the same in about an hour after they release that we signed that Exoval William kid from Palmeiras. So all of this is like a cover up in my point of view. I don't think we're gonna get Isak. I think we're just putting our little 2 cents just to keep the fans calm and try to get over the Olise deal. So I think Isak is just some PR stunt. So, but if we get Isak, to be honest, it would be an excellent signing for us. But if you have to look at it again, if they were complaining about the wage, about Michael Olise with the wage, how are you going to match Isak? You cannot. Isak already on 150,000. So you cannot give Isak another 150,000 if you come to Chelsea. It's going to be like a 250,000. So I don't see where it really adds up, unless these owners are trying to help each club out. Sorry, go ahead.
If you actually read this week, something came out this week where they said they are willing to pay players the money if they feel they're worth it.
Well, that's the explanation. That's all I have to say is we didn't feel Olise was worth 250, but we do feel Isak's worth 250. And in terms of goals, you're probably right. Generally, at clubs, the goal scorer gets paid more than anybody else because it's the hardest skill in football. It's typically been the case throughout the history of the game, really. So
can I counter that? If you look at Palmer, what if Palmer come in this season and said, "Okay, I scored 27 goals last season, so I'm gonna need a 250,000." So if Jackson take all of his chances this season coming up, then Jackson gonna come in, and that's what the owners are running from, in my point
No,
of view.
they're not. No, they're not. You're not listening, because they said they would award players we've already got. That's
No,
the
I
whole point.
understand what you're saying,
And
but I'm
Palmer's-
just saying.
and they said they're going to double. There's rumours they're going to double Palmer's wages this summer already.
But this is the point here,
remember,
though.
our
So this-
contracts are all incentivized
Yeah.
as well. They're all
So,
incentivized.
this is-
So you get paid more if you get in the Champions. If you say to them,
yeah,
you want more money,
I agree.
get us in the Champions League if you want more money. That's all it is. That's all it is.
This is the thing. Let's just say Jackson does start scoring loads of goals, and Isak scoring loads of goals, and Palmer scoring loads of goals, and they're all saying we want the same as Isak. Chelsea would be willing to pay it, because if you've got 3 or 4 players scoring 25 goals each season, you're winning major trophies. As a general view, if you've got 3 players scoring that amount of goals, so they can justify, and that's where you've got to get it right. So this is the problem with a lot of football fans. We see things at base level up front. Man United are trying to lower their wage bill. That's cutting corners. You're not trying to win. You're not being serious. Sometimes you have to go backwards before you go forwards at the end of the day. Sometimes you've got to take things away before you add things to make it perfect. And I think you are right. If Chelsea, for instance, don't give Palmer the new deal and he leaves and goes somewhere else, then that's when I think you challenge it. But I almost feel a sense of wait and you can challenge it and be skeptical, but I think too many fans are angry about things and stressing about things that haven't happened yet. And I feel that I know that they haven't done a perfect job yet, your owners, and I've criticized them, and rightfully so. But I don't believe if one of your strikers starts scoring 25 goals a season, 30 goals a season, they won't up their wages to match what a player in the current market earns. I think they will do that. What they don't want to do is what Man United are trying to get away from, paying someone who is at Anthony Martial's level at this stage of his career 350 grand a week to play football, because you're not getting a return on that and everything's about an ROI, a return on the investment, and it's going to be a real. And I don't believe you guys ain't got as everyone's close to PSR, but I think you guys have got the money. The amount you've lowered your wage bill, and with Lukaku looking like he's going to leave, you'll still be making a profit based on what Isak's getting paid. You've got his money coming off, and it could go into someone like Isak. JC is with us. JC, welcome to the show, my friend. What do you want to say?
Hello, Terry. Hi. No, very shortly, I will just try to put my point through. People are comparing Isak with Olise, and they are totally different things. They are not comparable. Chelsea was talking for Olise, we still had the luxury of having a lot of players, very talented players in his position. And if Olise did not happen, it was not end of the world for Chelsea. So walking out of Olise deal, if the financials do not fit in, makes perfect sense. And if you look at most of the players, and what Bowley and both the owners have all the time been saying is they are looking at values. He was like speaking very proudly, like even today with all the purchases, most of the purchases they have done, the players are holding their value. So they will not overpay. And certainly not in case if we have enough talent or in future talent coming in those positions. So Isak is a striker, which Chelsea is, by the way, not having a lot of enough talent in that position. So they are two different positions to be comparing. But I still believe Isak will not happen if it is overpriced. Again, the same argument, like they will not overpay. This is a new system since the new directors have come in. You can say it was a different Chelsea. Initially, when Bowley was the one operating, we overpaid for many players. Iqbali was getting involved. But right now, what we are seeing, there is a structure in place. Why they might be talking is, that's my opinion, is if they make a swap deal for a certain Gallagher or somebody like that, then it might be workable, because otherwise
that makes a lot of sense.
Any sense. Otherwise, it's just empty talk or inquiring and things like that.
That makes a hell of a lot of sense, mate. It really does. Subs here says that's a I don't think he's talking about you. He wrote this earlier, so this isn't to your point. He says that's a lazy take. No owners are listening to fans. Isak is on 120k. We can give him maybe 180. He'd take that. He possibly could. Chelsea, this is from the Pitch Invaders, who says Chelsea are cheating way more and way longer than City. Also, if Arsenal and Chelsea both bid the same money, Isak goes to Chelsea, something is fishy. I mean, I don't think it's necessary.
I think thanks for the opportunity. I put my point there. So I really appreciate if like Chelsea fans look at the on the panel, look at this other aspect as well. It's not just about emotion. It's about figures. It's about the requirement, the necessity, and the reality. And these owners, they have shown to be creative. They are not breaking the laws, but they are going creative. 1 year ago, everybody used to say swapping is not possible in football. Right now, everybody is looking to swap. So these people are not idiots. They know what they are doing as well. So they need a little bit of respect on what they have been more creative with, which is not breaking the rules, but trying to figure out different solutions. And other clubs are jumping in. Other clubs are going to make swapping deals, which was supposed to be not real just a few years ago.
But the issue with the swapping,
Okay,
I'm
I'm done with my comments. It's just an observation, and it's my opinion. So thanks for that.
The thing though, it's not actually. If you read it, it's not actually swap deals. It's actually because that Douglas Luiz deal, not actually a swap deal. It's actually two separate.
Andrew, I call it swap because
no, I'm not.
One deal, you will not do the other deal.
No,
although
I'm just saying
they are different, but if they are buying only one player, the other club will not do the deal. They need the two to make it happen. Technically, they may be two separate purchases, but you can call them swap because if one of those deals does not happen, Aston Villa is not buying Maatsen for 37 if Chelsea is not buying the other one. Because they don't have the money.
JC, I will say I do agree with you. The way certain journalists stress these are separate deals. Yes, they're separate deals on paper, but there'll be a conversation somewhere at the end of the day, and that's partly to do with PSR. But it's not against the rules. It's fine because
they want them down as separate.
Essentially, if I lent you £50. Surf bar, and you were going to pay it back to me, but then you did some work for me for £100. It'd be really weird for me to send you 100, and then you just send me 50 back to a certain degree. Now, tax. If we're businesses, we've got to do that because you've got to show exactly what you earn, and I've got to show exactly what's coming in. But so that's why the clubs have to do it. But in reality, you just go, do you know what? I'll just pay you 50 quid, then your debt's cleared, if that makes sense. But I don't think clubs can quite do it in that way because of the way it's all structured. So I think there's definitely a connection there. Elijah's here with us. What are you saying, my friend?
Hey Terry, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem, brother. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, Isak is a good player for me because he's permanently proven he can score goals and all of that stuff. But you asked the question if he's 100 million. I don't think so because I think that's way too much. And if we remember that we have got Caicedo for 150 million and Enzo Fernandez 105 million, and it just that just broke the record. So that could be if he got Isak 150, that would be the most expensive one in Premier League history. So the only way for me to get Isak is we need to sell a couple of players if we want to get like Isak because I feel like these owners are trying to buy players rather than selling them, if you know what I mean. Because next season we need to at least finish in the top 4 for Champions League. Because if not, we're going to get into trouble by the FFP. So Isak is a good player, but I'm worried that ever since we signed strikers, we haven't signed one that's like Diego Costa.
I get that.
They drop us. So I'm very worried that Isak coming to Chelsea might not benefit him, but it all depends on the system and if it works for him. So I'm hoping that Enzo Wesker can give the best out of him. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. If you're a Chelsea fan, signing like expensive number 9s, there has to be an element of PTSD that kicks in and concern because of historic things that have kind of gone wrong in that area. So I totally get where you're coming from. I do. I feel that way. I feel that way when Man United sign like South Americans because typically speaking, we have had such bad luck with South Americans. A few have done well, but the vast majority have never hit the levels that we expected. So when we're linked to one, I'm always like, that element worries me more than anything else. This here says Noni is key to the deal for Isak to Chelsea. I mean, it could be. Well, it could be depending on who else Chelsea buy.
He's not if they need to sell. He's not if they need to sell. He's not key to anything. That's what I'm saying. It won't be 150 million either. They only rate him at 120. So they're not going to get 150
million.
Yeah,
they're not going to get 150 million. Yeah. This here says, I do believe Chelsea will go down with City if guilty. Look, we'll see what happens with those court cases because the Chelsea haven't even been charged with anything yet. So it's really, really, really difficult to.
Derek, can I ask you guys a question?
Very quickly, mate. Go on.
Oh, all right. If you look at back in the 90s, right, when the Italian Serie A was the best league in the world, right? And this right now, the Premier League in January, no one signed anyone at all. Remember, all the Spanish and the Italian was complaining about they can compete with the Premier League. So you think this PSR come in to kind of balance the whole entire football nation right across the world? Like, if you notice right now, like the Juventus is struggling, AC Milan, everyone is going like with a player trading. Look at Aston Villa with Juventus, with Douglas Luiz. You know, the trade, you think that's something that's really going to take over football? Because if you notice, the landslide is changing in football completely.
Mate, there's so much truth to that. And there are some people I've spoken to from a financial background who believe that this is the beginning of the transfer market collapse in terms of players no longer being valued at the same level they used to be. And I think that's why sometimes you've got to take yourselves out of the here and now and look at even though money's still growing in the game, you think about an agent fee is normally 10%. And if transfers keep getting bigger and bigger, eventually you're going to start paying agents £80 million to buy a player. And there's only you also get to a point where the risk is so high when doing that. Although there's huge income, all it takes is one of these TV companies to go bust, a few billionaire owners to go out of business, certain parts of the world getting into conflicts, and these kind of debts can be unmanageable. So I do think there's an element here of lowering some of the outgoings. And then I think what they've got to do with the increase of profits then is start to safeguard clubs by putting money into accounts or into bonds, sort of protect people against stuff going wrong. Because listen, clubs were going out, big clubs were going out of business and some even nearly folding only 15 years ago, 60 or 70 million pounds worth of debt. We start allowing clubs to rack up 500 million debt, $1 billion debt, 2 billion debt. There's going to be a lot of football clubs because not everyone's going to have an owner like Roman that just writes it off. That's the long and the short of it. And you have to protect against the worst case scenario and not have a rule for the best case scenario, I think, but that's just me. Look, boys, I want to thank you all for calling in. I want to thank our super chatters. I want to thank everyone who's tuned into the show. We're live, of course, after the knockout games that start today. How are you feeling, Guiepppe? Are you feeling like happy or a little bit mamma mia about your game later?
Mamma mia. I'm feeling like the pizza might be burning in the oven. No, listen, yeah, I'm not too confident about today. Big thing for me is that Calafiori's not playing. He obviously got the ban
suspension.
Yeah, the suspension, which
that's so stupid.
I hate that sort of rule.
It's so old school, that rule. It's so
in
old
the competitions like this, but it is what it is. I'm not too confident. If we go through, I'll be happy. If we don't, I'll be upset. But the thing is, it's one of them ones where inevitably just this Euros is going downhill for me, like in all aspects, because I'm like, Italy ain't doing good, England ain't doing good. Of course, the worst possible fixture that happens every competition to me is happening, could possibly happen again this season in Italy versus England. It seems to happen all the time, and I can't stand it. But yeah, listen, I'll be here after, and I'll show my phone.
Yes, we'll be here. Listen, everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. This is going to take you through to Mo Gender's channel, so go check out what he's talking about over there. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless, and we'll see you soon.